Welcome, viewers and listeners, to CHP Talks. I'm here in northern British Columbia, and my guest this week is Jeff Willerton, and he is in a Tim Hortons in Calgary area, or Airdrie, I guess it's Airdrie. And thank you, Jeff, for joining us. I'm going to introduce you in a minute, but thanks for being with us today, even in a Tim Hortons. I know what that's like trying to do an interview with the background noise, but at least you got good coffee.
I got good coffee, and yes, it is noisy. I was thinking about asking everybody to be quiet, but that won't go over very well.
Yeah, it's nice to know where to draw your lines and what you can expect of people. I think asking folks in a Tim
some battles you're just not going to win.
It's probably not going to work. So we'll cope with it the best we can. And for folks who do not know, Jeff Willerton, first of all, he's a friend of mine, but he is a 58-year-old high school educated political activist, author, and performing artist. As for being high school educated, Jeff likes to point out that his pure mind hasn't been polluted by academia. As far as being a performing artist, he is a guitar player and a singer, and on that point, he did step up and provided some much appreciated music at our last CHP convention, which happened to be in Calgary last year. Jeff has run for office 14 times, 3 of which were for the Christian Heritage Party. As Jeff points out in what is now the 20th edition of his book, Fix Canada, Abraham Lincoln lost 8 elections, Winston Churchill lost 5, but it's not really a contest that normal people set out to win in terms of how many times you can lose. But anyway, he's beat them both combined. So no one makes a living off one book, but Jeff has managed to do that despite chapters having kicked it off the shelf many years ago. So I call that the 7th wonder of the world, and I'm not given to exaggeration. So Jeff has written 3 other books. He says that they're short and sweet like him, and he offers them for free at his website, jeffwillerton.com. But today, we're here to talk about his big book, Fix Canada. And with that, Jeff, welcome to CHP Talk.
Thank you, Rod. Thanks for having me on your program.
Yeah. So maybe you can hold up the 20th edition. I'm holding up the 17th edition here. And same wonderful graphic on the cover, this mechanic who is going to use whatever pressure, whatever tactics it takes to fix Canada. And you started this project some years ago. And let's back up a little further, though. When did you begin wanting to fix Canada? When did you first realize that there was something desperately wrong in this wonderful country that we love?
Well, around about 1990, I think the summer of 1990, I was in a Wendy's in Calgary, and someone, the gal I was with, passed me a newspaper and wanted me to read an article on welfare abuse, and I was incensed. I wasn't a regular newspaper reader, but I read this article, and it was about people abusing the system. We'll just describe it like that. And I was incensed, and that was the hook that drew me into politics. It's usually an issue that draws people, a single issue that draws people, and that was it for me. And I went straight from there. The next day I went to Chapters and picked up Bill Gardner's first big book, The Trouble with Canada, and it was hot off the press that year. And that was my introduction to political literature and how I got involved.
Yeah, that's a great book as well. Bill Gardner's The Trouble with Canada. And we've had
amazing. He's a genius. The guy's a genius.
Yeah. We had a speaker. He was a speaker for us at one of our conventions, and someone who saw the big picture. There's lots of people that see little pieces of the picture, but not everybody sees the big picture, and he's one of them. So you began, I understand, then shortly after your awakening to the fact that there were some serious things wrong in the culture, you began writing articles. Where were you publishing those articles, or letters to the editor or whatever?
Not right away. Immediately in 1990, I just started reading. I became interested, and I was, my dad had taught me how to read and write before going to kindergarten. And because as I say in the book, I bring that to people's attention now in the 20th edition, but they had just dropped phonetics from the curriculum. He thought that was the dumbest thing they'd ever done. So I like to say the day was young. But anyways, so he taught me how to read and write before I went to school. I was an avid reader. Read a bunch of books for a contest in grade 1. The teacher didn't believe me, called me a liar in front of the class. And I honestly, at that moment, I developed an attitude towards reading, and I didn't read another book I didn't have to for the rest of my scholastic career, if you want to call it that. And just read what I had to get by. I was 26 years old in 1990, and the political bug bit me. I went and bought a book, and I haven't stopped reading. Went and bought that first book. I haven't stopped reading. So I didn't start writing in 1990, but I started reading again in 1990.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So read other people's opinions. The editorial page was my favorite part of the paper. So I sometimes read 3 papers a day, besides the books. And when an opportunity came up in 1998 to write a weekly column for these 3 small weekly papers, it was there, and I was there, and it worked.
Yeah. So, and I want to just apologize to our listeners right today, because that there is quite a bit of background noise there. It's not only we can hear the noise, but it's also muting or ruffling your voice at times.
Okay, sorry.
It's taking over your audio. So we ask folks to stay with us. We're going to get through this. Our next
one way or
interview,
another, we got to get through it.
Our next interview with Jeff Willerton will be in a quieter environment. But today we're glad to have you where all the action is in Tim Hortons. I've been in so many Tim Hortons across the country, and it is actually a wonderful place to stop for various things, especially the coffee. So,
yeah.
So you began writing shortly after that, and sending these letters in, and that somehow drew you into the political. You began.
Well, the politics was a passion for me. I was working for an insurance company for a number of years, and didn't particularly enjoy it. I was transferred to Red Deer from Calgary, and I inherited the account of a guy named Ken Hughes, who worked for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And he was telling me about his job. I liked it. I tagged along with him one day and see what it was like. I loved his job, and I couldn't stand mine. So I gave him my notice, and away I went. Didn't know whether I'd sink or swim, but I did all right. And they transferred me to Barhead, or gave me some piece of the country up in Barhead, and I thought, instead of commuting from Calgary, where I was living again, on Monday and Friday, I just moved up there. So I did.
Yeah.
And as such, it was there that I started writing an occasional letter to the editor. And the comments, the feedback that I was getting was good. And then one day, a fellow on our editorial page up and passed away. He was a healthy guy in his mid-70s, and they responded by opening up his space to guest writers. So I saw in that an opportunity, and I changed my occasional letter to the editor to a 430-word column length letter, and they were gracious enough to publish me every week with 3 in the next 6 months, and then they were gracious enough to just give me the byline.
Yeah.
For as I say, the princely sum of $15 a week. It was my coffee money.
Well, a lot of things have changed since those glory days, right? In terms of cost of living and so on.
Yeah.
But so when did you get the idea? Well, I've got to ask you sort of about politics, because you began. When did you first run for politics, and when did you get the idea of compiling some of these articles together into a book?
I first ran for the Social Credit Party in Alberta in 1997. So
97.
The political bug bit me in 1990. 7 years later, I ran in my first campaign in Calgary for the old Social Credit Party.
Yeah, super. Yeah, that's we're kind of not too far apart on the timeline. I ran first for the BC Unity Party in British Columbia in 2001. So
I remember them. I remember them. Yeah,
2 years apart with
Yeah.
the Honorable Bill Vander Zalm. It was really quite an experience to be rubbing shoulders with some of these great people who had tried so hard to fix not Canada necessarily, but fix British Columbia, and basically got put down the stairs by some of the people in their own party, and it was terrible. But anyway,
needs to be done.
Yeah. So you've experienced the ups and downs of politics, and the downs in terms of poll results, but the ups in terms of meeting with and working with some powerful people and people with great minds and intellect. So maybe describe a little bit of that, your involvement in politics, because you've been a candidate for us now 3 times. And but you also have run provincially. You've run for other parties. Tell us
ran
about that.
Ran provincially many times. Sometimes as an independent. Sometimes when the Wild Rose Party was starting, I was a founding member of the Wild Rose Party with Link Byfield in '97, and 2007. Ran for them in 2008, and ran in by-elections and things like that. Sometimes as an independent, sometimes for these startup conservative parties. I just I don't want to complain and sit back and do nothing, right? So I keep plugging away.
Well, across the country today, in many provinces, there are municipal elections going on, school trustee elections. I know in British Columbia, we vote this Saturday for municipal councillors, for mayors, for school trustees. And so I'm thankful for the people that are stepping forward to represent biblical values, godly values, and to want to fix Canada in their own little corner, right? And so we hope that we get some good results in that. But thank you. I want to thank you as an individual for stepping forward to bring values to the table. And in spite of, it would be nice to win. Obviously, when we run, we hope to win. We do everything we can possibly do to win. But if we don't, at least we've been a voice in the wilderness, bringing truth to the public and even to the other candidates. Sometimes there's a special privilege of bringing something to the other candidates, even the ones who are getting elected, that they hopefully will not forget when they get in office. So your first, I think it was 18 years ago that your first edition of Fix Canada came out.
No, it was actually 22 years ago in the fall of 2000. Yeah, I wrote the columns in 98, 99, and ended up in a sales job. Had to leave the area for work. That didn't pan out so well. But I ended up in a sales job and made quite a bit of money in a short period of time. Not selling drugs, but so I made quite a bit of money in a short period of time. I had $10,000 burning a hole in my pocket, and I thought, what am I going to do? You know what? I'm going to republish my columns in book format. And so I wrote an introduction and conclusion, updated the issues, and published the first book of what is now Fix Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something else back in the day, but the name has morphed somewhat over the years.
Yeah, and we heard about your book. You and I were discussing yesterday how that came about, but I contacted you. Not sure what year that was, and you were planning a trip.
It was 2014. If I remember
2014. Correctly. Okay, the same year that I became leader of the Christian Heritage Party, but before
you were the deputy leader at the time.
Yeah. So you
might have been earlier.
I contacted you because I liked what I was reading and you said that you were making a trip up to northern British Columbia. And I said, well, why don't you drop in and see us? You ended up with us for a night or two. I'm not sure how long that was, but we had
a weekend, yeah.
Great visit. And my wife Elaine at that time had she must have had your book in a Christian bookstore before that time, because
I'm not sure that she did. But if my memory serves correctly, I sold a book. I had finished a southern BC tour.
Yeah,
I was down there for 9 months, I forget, and had come back to Airdrie to kind of regroup, and was here for a week and headed off to northern BC when you called.
Yeah.
And,
so was Elaine's bookstore still open? The Lighthouse Bookstore?
Yes, Elaine. The bookstore was still open. Yeah.
So it couldn't have been 2014 because the store closed in 2013. So
I'm going to guess 2012 then. 2012.
Okay. So here we go with trying to synchronize our memories, right? But anyway. What I do remember is it was a great visit. We were quite impressed. We ended up with several copies of your book, and we've gotten the updates ever since.
And three are on the way. Three copies of the new one are on the way to you at present.
So the new one is the 20th edition. It's coming out in 2022, and you've already been selling those. Now, what I want to tell people is that this man, Jeff Willerton, travels around the country in his van selling his book and selling ideas, I guess, as much as anything, selling the idea of fixing Canada. But he has been doing that for, you told me the other day, 18 years, but you think
it's 17 years full time.
Okay. So he's been making a living.
I calculated it last night, 17 years full time.
Making a living selling one book with multiple editions for 17 years. And that's what I call the seventh wonder of the world is, selling. It's one thing to sell a series of books or to have a bookstore, but to go around knocking on doors and selling a book and making a living at it is just amazing. And by the way, here I'm going to make a shameless plug for my own book, which came out in 2018, The Substance of Things Hoped For. And I do not travel around the country knocking on doors and trying to sell my book. It is available through Amazon, but it is similar in this way. You want to fix Canada, and I called mine The Substance of Things Hoped For, which Christians would know comes from Hebrews 11:1. Faith is. And what do we hope for? We hope for a Canada that is fixed. We hope for a Canada that finds its way in the wilderness, and for leaders who restore righteousness, morality, and common sense to the governance of Canada, the provinces, and the municipalities. So that's something we hope for, and that requires faith to think that could ever happen, because the way the world is going right now, it's pretty sad, and Canada needs fixing. And to get there, we believe it needs good men and women who are listening to God in one way or another. Listening to the word of God and working to see his kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, which is great. So Jeff, I thought that there's nothing new under the sun. That's also from the Bible. It says nothing new under the sun. I like to read G.K. Chesterton, and I don't compare either of us to his writings or Winston Churchill, but
it's probably safe course.
Yeah. Safe to do that. But we use the same English language, but there are people with a particular gifting that stand out over time, over centuries. But G.K. Chesterton also, numbers of his articles and essays were compiled into collected works, and some of them were just columns that he had in the paper. Tremendous amount of writing, unbelievable amount of writing that he did. And a lot of it was on issues of the time, current issues that we're getting your new iPad wiped off here in the Tim Hortons.
Yeah, spilling coffee on my new iPad today.
Okay, yeah. And I'll also let people know that Jeff has a brand new iPad. The reason is somebody stole his trusty old one. And so we're sorry about the that not everybody has learned. Don't steal, don't kill, don't commit adultery.
Not everyone has learned those Christian values. No, that's right.
So then it falls on us to bear the burden collectively of a society where we need to lock our doors and have the court system and all that stuff. Anyway, those are some of the things that need to be fixed in Canada. We need to give people a better moral upbringing, a better moral fabric, so that stealing and gang warfare. I just saw this morning, there's been a what they call it, an assassination in Calgary, a gang leader who was executed. That's in Calgary. So, this the wild, wild west has come to Canada as our moral culture has declined.
Yes.
So this new, I'm going to ask you from edition to edition. So there was number 1, there was number 2, there was number 3, all the way up to now the 20th edition. How much has changed in each of those editions? Like, obviously, some of it stays the same.
Some stays the same. The columns were written about issues that haven't gone away. They've only gotten larger and more interface, and I get new information on them from time to time. And that new information will find its way into the new books. I didn't want it to be a large book. It has to be readable by non-readers, so I keep it under 200 pages. And so I can't add to it. So when I add something, I have to take something away. So sometimes there's something superfluous that is kind of gone by the wayside and doesn't need to be there. Boom, that's going to come out. Or sometimes something that's good. There's just some amazing new information that I have to have in there, and I will throw out something that's perfectly good for something that's better. And therefore the book gets better every time I go back and print.
If somebody has your 10th edition and they're wondering whether they should get the 20th edition, there's going to be a lot of new material in there.
A lot of new material. Even if someone has the 19th, they'll want the 20th because there's a lot of new information, especially in the conclusion on the COVID issue. Okay. And my source for a lot of it was RFK's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Brilliant book. When I first saw it advertised, I was down in Florida, busking outside of busking in Florida to, just to make a little money and eat and so on. And I just got out of Canada for 6 months after the last election. Yeah. And so I'm down in Florida, didn't have a lot of money, but I saw this book advertised. I think it was $40 American, 35, but reserved it right away. I was so thrilled to get it. And lots of good information in that book. Your head explodes about every 5 pages. Yeah, reading it. So you have to stop. But Well, I got a lot of good information out of that for this book, and that's what I'm always looking for in books that I read. Is something, another piece of the puzzle for Fix Canada. Yeah. A woman, I wrote her biography, Erica Burton. I met her in Ontario when I was down in those parts, and wrote her I was honored to write her biography. She's a Holocaust survivor. It's the first of 3 free books on my website, j.willerton.com. It's only 10 pages, but she gave me a book. I can never remember the guy's name. He lives out in Victoria, but it's called The Tai Dang Reunion, and it's about a family that ended up in the hands of the Japanese in the Second World War and ended up in concentration camps, separated. Mother and child, little boy, were in one, and dad was off at a work camp. But they all survived, and I didn't expect to get anything for Fix Canada out of it, but I sure did. Okay. It was a brilliant insight. I'm going to send a copy to that gentleman, whose name it's a Dutch name. I don't have it at my fingertips right now, but look forward to sending him a book too.
What's the name of the book again that you just mentioned?
Tai Dang Reunion. Tai Dang Reunion. Okay. There's a J in there. TJIDENG, I think. Mm-hmm. Tai Dang Reunion. It's a very good read. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed it immensely.
So, Jeff, when people want to actually read your book, Fix Canada, the 20th edition, and they'll have to get that quickly because otherwise it's going to be surpassed by the 21st edition, I imagine, right?
I don't think there will be one.
Really? Okay.
I think there'll be a number of print runs of the 20th edition.
Yeah.
I think I might have arrived. I'm making a couple changes. I'm working on it now already. In case my turnaround time at the printers is 7 months, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to sell the 5,000 copies that I have. I'm hoping it'll be quick, but I'm not starting that 7-month process right now. But I'm starting to work on the 21st, and I'll make some small changes. But I think it'll continue to be called the 20th edition.
Right. Well, this has changed. This year is the 17th edition, and it sold 60,000 copies. Now your new edition shows sales of 80,000. 80,000. And that involves you going back and forth across the country in your van. And I know one of the places you ended up, I don't know how this happened, but you were up visiting us in northern BC, and you ended up at the workshop of our national president in Niagara region of Ontario. And
oh, yes.
You had a discussion with him, not knowing each other at all. And he said, if you were voting today, who would you vote for? And you said, Christian Heritage, probably the Christian Heritage Party. No. He said, good, I'll take 2 copies of your book. So
and he said, who would you run for? I think he said, who, I forget whether he said, who would you vote for or who would you run for?
Yeah.
And I sized him up and I said, okay, he's 5'10", 5'11", blonde, obviously Christian. I think he's Dutch. I'm going to say Christian Heritage Party. Okay. And that's not really, I would, and that was my opinion anyways. But
yeah. Anyway, I thought it was a pretty neat story that within a very short period of time, you had personal conversations with, in person, with both me as leader at the time, deputy leader, and the national president. Yeah. So
I first heard about CHP when I was selling memberships for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation in around the Barhead area. I was up in Irlandia, and Cy Stridehorst.
Yeah, Cy Stridehorst.
What's Cy and Jake and Cy? Yeah. Exactly. I was on their farm, gave them my spiel, and then they turned it around on me and told me about CHP. Yeah. And I kind of patted it on my head and said, and we parted company because CHP is just such an outlier. And I never thought about it again until I got a call from you.
Yeah, super.
And ended up spending. So my second exposure to the party was spending a weekend with Rod, with you and Elaine. And I mean, everyone should be so fortunate, right?
Yeah. Well, it was an awesome time for us. So how do people get a hold of you and get a hold of a copy of this book?
Well, I need them to write down a phone number. It's 1-877-601-0708. It's 1-877-601-0708. Call me and I'll send you one.
And how about by email? Is there a website or email?
They can email me at j.willerton@yahoo.com. Or Jeff at jeffwillerton.com works as well. But
which is the best one? j.willerton at
j.willerton@yahoo.com is the direct one.
Yahoo.com. And
I'm stuck to Yahoo.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's excellent. And I hope to be seeing you in person again, Jeff, on November the 12th, when I will be in Red Deer. And
looking forward to that.
We're having an Alberta members meeting there that Frans van der Stroot is making arrangements for. I'll be on my way back from Nova Scotia from the Free Speech and Medicine Conference, and from Ontario, where I'm going to be meeting with a number of people there. And so I look forward to seeing you in sunny Alberta on November 12th.
Looking forward to that.
So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the work you've been doing all these years and continue to do in your efforts to fix Canada. And if everyone put their effort in the same place, I think we would see a lot more happen that way.
The last time I spoke with you in this medium, it was about I had written the biography for the gal in Ontario. Was looking for to shake up some business. Didn't get any, but my phone number was my cell number was broadcast many times during that thing, and a woman had been looking for my book for years and unable to find it, but she found a link to that interview and was thrilled to know how to reach me directly and get the book. So that did bear fruit.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Maybe this one will too.
Yeah, and folks out there who do not have a copy, and very few of you will have a copy of the 20th edition. If you already have an older edition, it would be worthwhile getting a new one. And Christmas is coming. It'd be a good book to be thinking about giving to your friends and family and helping them to understand some of the issues going on in our country today.
And it promotes CHP more than I have in earlier editions. Like I started to mention CHP when I met you and Elaine, spent some time with you guys. And it wasn't until the Conservatives endorsed, basically changed the definition of marriage in their official policy in 2016 that I said, you know what, enough's enough. I got to go check out CHP. And that's when I started to learn about you guys more and get excited about your program.
Yeah. Oh, very good. And it looks like in the recent leadership contest of the Conservative Party of Canada, they have chosen a man, very, powerful speaker, articulate, energetic, but a person who is pro-abortion, pro-gay marriage, and who supported efforts to ban conversion therapy and deny access to help to those struggling with gender confusion or whatever. So we're kind of in the same spot here as pragmatism or principles. And Jeff, I'm glad that you're standing for principles, and hope that you have good success with your new edition of Fix Canada. So God bless you, and thanks for taking the time. Enjoy your coffee. Have another cup on me. Thanks.
Thanks, Rod. Nice to see you.
Yeah, bye-bye.